GNCC, I guess, kind of knew about it a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't know those guys did it for a living.
Yeah, right. So 10 years ago, you weren't saying my goal is to be the GNCC champion. That wasn't like on your radar.
Nah, definitely not. I just raced for fun, and it's what I did with my family. And we don't really have anywhere to ride up here, like legally and stuff. So we would just go to the races on the weekend for a place to ride. That's how it started.
Yeah, welcome to another episode of the Racer X Exhaust Podcast. I'm Jason Weigandt. As always, this is brought to you by Yoshimura. Check out the RS12 exhaust system for your dirt bike. Good for motocross. They've even got sound inserts so you can add a spark arrestor, make your bike a little bit quieter. I'm a fan of that. How many times do you hear people complain about bikes being too loud? You rarely hear people complain about bikes being too fast. Maybe if you made your bike a little bit slower, but a lot quieter, less people would complain about riding. Sorry, soapbox, I'm getting off of it. Go to yoshimura-rd.com and look into the RS12 exhaust system. Looks good, sounds good, performs awesome. Also brought to you by On-X Maps. Over 500,000 miles of trails mapped out for you via the app. Go to On-X Off-Road in the App Store to check it out, or onxmaps.com. It's originally started as a hunting app, so it is incredibly, exquisitely, painstakingly accurate. It maps out public and private lands and allows people to leave notes. How many times have you loaded up your mountain bike or your dirt bike or something like that, and you're like, I'm going to try this. At least that's what I do. And then you basically drive there praying and with your fingers crossed, hoping that the trail will be open and you can ride there legally. Maybe it's because I grew up in New Jersey and you were basically running from the cops' riding areas all the time. Soapbox over. Go to onxmaps.com or OnX Off-Road in the App Store to check out 500,000 miles of trails for whatever you want to ride, even if you want to just do trail running, hiking, or hunting, whatever it might be this fall. This episode, I love the off-season in AMA Motocross and Supercross because I again get to talk to good personalities outside of the traditional racing areas that we cover at Racer X. This week, the new GNCC champion, Ben Kelley. Obviously, I should have him on the pod because he's the new GNCC champion. That's a big deal. But this is even bigger for three reasons. A, Ben is a relative newcomer on the national off-road stage. He came from New England, which New England is always its own little enclave, both in motocross and in off-road. There's great riders up there, great tracks, great racing. We know this, but you don't see them in the traditional stops. A lot of the New England favorites don't always come down to, say, Loretta Lynn's, just to give you an idea. And on the off-road side, GNCC back in the day was traditionally dominated by riders from Pennsylvania, Ohio, Kentucky area. And then eventually we had the California motocrossers come in and the international stars from overseas. And then riders from the Southeast, a lot of them nowadays. Very little penetration, yes, I said that word, into the GNCC or National Series from New England. But now there's a whole wave of them coming. And what I think is so cool about this story with Ben Kelley, not only did he find his way into GNCC and exceed all of his dreams and expectations, where he is now making a living racing, which he did not expect, but he's also brought a few of his buddies with him as well. They're also winning. They're also succeeding. And they helped him in this is part two of this story, this dramatic GNCC finale in the rain and the mud, where Kelley was trying to stave off title attempts by Stu Baylor. It is a fantastic story when he drowns his bike and his buddies help him in the race so he can clinch this title. That's a cool part. And the third part of the story is Kelley is part of the FMF KTM team that has won this title like 30 years in a row, it feels. I think it's actually 8 in a row with Caleb Russell. A lot of pressure on Ben, who's relatively new to this type of stage, to keep their championship streak alive. Okay, Ben Kelley, I could have talked to you last week after the epic GNCC finale, but I wanted to wait until also you got to go home. You raced J-Day Off-Road at Southwick. I'm just going to start with that. Can there be a more fun event than a cool off-road woods race vibe and at Southwick? It's got to be one of the most fun races out there.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I look forward to that race all year, and it's just at the iconic Southwick, so you can't beat that, you know. And it's cool for me. It's 35 minutes from my house, so super local, and yeah, it just draws a huge crowd.
Yeah, so that's what I want to get into here. There is like this whole new wave of New England-based riders that are coming through now, GNCC, and getting the factory rides. You know, GNCC used to be like Ohio, Pennsylvania guys, then it was Southeastern guys. Now we're into a bunch of you. Is it the J-Day series that has kind of launched that, or what do you think is making this happen? Because now a lot of the factory rides are going to New England guys.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, when I was on 85s, we had Jake Korn, who's from New England. I'm not sure exactly what state, but yeah, he, had support from K-Cam and raced XC2 and did well. And yeah, I just, there were always guys from New England who did like Netra Hare Scrambles, which is what I did, and J-Days that would travel down to Florida, kind of just, they would go down for like a week and hit like the Florida GNCC and Georgia. But I just never did that. I don't know. It was just lots of traveling and work and school and stuff. We just never really thought to do it. We didn't really know about it all that much, but yeah, I would always see my friends doing that, and man, thought it was cool. And the New England riders are good. Like everyone, it's crazy. Like the competition, you go to a J-Day and so many guys are fast, and yeah, it's wild. Just especially since the J-Days were coming around, the courses are kind of more similar to a GNCC. The track is short, 2 to 3 miles. And, this past weekend they had, I think, 827 riders, he said. So it's crazy. The tracks get so rough, and they have to make it so wide just for passing. So it gets real similar to a GNCC. And I think that with the high intensity racing has kind of, made riders even faster and better. And it's really helped, in my opinion, me cross over to the GNCCs.
Yeah. So now that there's this pathway that you and a couple other riders have taken, okay, when you were growing up in 85s, were you thinking like, I would like to make a living as a professional and be a factory rider, race a national series, be it GNCC, National Enduro, Endurocross, whatever it is? Was that something that you think other kids around you were thinking of doing?
I'm sure kids definitely did. I wasn't really that, but it was just not because I didn't like it. Like I liked it, and I was like, man, yeah, it would be cool, but I just didn't really know it was a thing, Like I watched Supercross and Motocross and like knew those guys did it for a living, but since I raced off-road, I didn't really know that was possible, like my dad like knew about ISD a little, and then but GNCC, I guess, kind of knew about it a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't know those guys did it for a living.
Yeah, so right. So 10 years ago, you weren't saying my goal is to be the GNCC champion. That wasn't like on your radar.
Nah, definitely not. I just raced for fun, and it's what I did with my family. And we don't really have anywhere to ride up here, like legally and stuff. So we would just go to the races on the weekend for a place to ride. That's how it started.
So this has to be crazy. Like this has to have all hit you, say the last 4 years or so, where things have really been rolling with XC2 titles, and then moving in XC1, and now having this GNCC crown. It has to have hit you like very quickly if you weren't visualizing this when you were 10 years old.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's what I talk about. Like it's all happened so fast, and we honestly have like no time. Like there's so many races, and then once the season's over, it's like you get a short bit of time, but you try to pack it in, like hanging out with friends and family, and try to do everything you want to do that you can't during the season when you're so busy. And then before you know it, like winters are harsh up here, so we got to go down to Florida and start training again. And it's just like once you accomplish something, or once something's over, it's right to the next. You don't even have time to think about it. So it's crazy. 4 years ago, I guess 3-4 years ago when I won my first XC2 title, yeah, that feels like yesterday. So it's crazy.
Can you actually get to enjoy it then? So your GNCC title, that's huge. You win it. You go to this J-Day. That's fun. But then you still have a national enduro. Like you said, the offseason is going to be short. Yeah. Are you even getting to process this stuff and like really take a breath for a moment?
Yeah, just honestly, The second the race was over, like it was just a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. And yeah, it just feels super good. So it is weird, like I'm just staying focused on like the racing and stuff, but I definitely slacked off this week and chilled out, just rode my dirt bike for fun with friends. And yeah, just did the J Day, and it's been such a long season. We've been training so much that still in good shape and feeling super strong, and just, honestly, we're having to do a lot of resting just to keep our body from getting beat down. So it's cool. Yeah, definitely enjoying it, but it's just weird, once you accomplish like what you've been working for all year, it's like it's over, and it's like a weird feeling. You just got to kind of focus on the next thing and get your mind wrapped around that, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? It's like 12 months or 9 or 10 months of work to get there. And then when you finally do, it must be kind of like, well, wait, now what do I do? Like all the work you were doing was for preparing for the race, not thinking about what it would be like after it actually happens.
Yeah, it's weird too. Like the winning is awesome. Everyone wants to win, and I love winning, and it's weird when you win. It feels so good, and it's a weight off your shoulders, but the losing is the worst part. Coming up close or getting second at a race, and that's what fuels the fire and gets you angry. That's what you think about when you win. It feels good, but it's not like it's pestering you in your mind all the time, where losing does that.
Gotcha. Okay, watching these races this year, I know that a big part of GNCC is experience, knowing when to push, and you're pushing the whole time, but then there's that extra level and strategy and all that. And Stu Baylor's been racing this series his whole life. Man, it looked like there were end of races where I saw your interview and you were spent. You gave it everything you had. How much of it is like, I just need to get fitter, or I got to learn the trade, the game, the strategy? How much strategy is there in these 3-hour races?
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy. It's a little bit of both, or a little bit of everything, I think. The beginning of the year, I had like a pretty good off season and was feeling really good. And then I got banged up at a national enduro prior to the first race. So 2 weeks leading up to it, I couldn't really do anything. And honestly, was pretty nervous that, man, I might not even be able to race, but was able to do that and pull through for the first few rounds. And yeah, I was feeling good. And kind of once I was starting to get healthy again, that's when I had I would call my dip in the series. I just struggled with a lot of things. And it was almost like, yeah, I wasn't managing the race properly. I was, riding too fast early on and maybe not taking the best line. So I was just getting tired. And man, yeah, it was tough to just feel like I was the fastest guy, but then get tired and get passed late in the race. A lot of times I would lead a lot of races or a lot of laps. And then it happened, I think, 3 occasions where I got passed on the last lap, once by Strang and then by Stu. And I'm like, man, those last 2 laps, I just had my tongue in the spokes and I was doing everything I could just to stay on the track and stay ahead of those guys. And then once they passed me, it was like, that was it. I had nothing left. And kind of during the summer, I did it at Snowshoe right before summer break. I managed to race properly and got the win. And yeah, had a good summer. And the last 4, that's when I felt the strongest. The first race back, Mountaineer, Stu's really good there. And it's rocky and stuff, so everyone expects me to be really good, but it's not one of my best tracks. And so to come away with second there was okay. And then the final, I guess, 3 rounds, those I felt I could win and I felt strong, but it was the same kind of deal, gave it up, gave the third to last round up on the last lap to Stu, and then was able to win the second to last one. And then Ironman, everyone knows that's just, you can't even compare it to anything. That's just was what it was.
Right. But what I'm getting at is here, it's not like, if you had just done 10 more miles on a road bike, you would have won those races. Yeah. It's a lot more elaborate than that.
Yeah, it's almost, it's easy to overtrain. And I mean, 3-hour races are so grueling and so long, and our intensity is super high. It's pretty crazy. Even if you feel like you're cruising, like you got guys flying by you, you're passing people, just the fact that you're in a race, your adrenaline's pumping. So heart rates are high and it's super physical. And yeah, it's easy to overtrain. And even if you're the most fit guy out there, you could get beat by someone who's just grittier than you or can suffer longer. And just, it's crazy. If you go even 5% faster through the first 2 hours, you could have nothing left for the last 2. And that's really everything, everyone's fast in the beginning and it's just being able to hold on and not make those mistakes. Like, it's such a long time to be processing all that information, flying by the trees so fast that it's not just your body getting tired, like mentally you're just gassed, and it's so hard to not make mistakes, not crash, and just honestly make all the right decisions, with line choice and getting stuck in a mud hole or making up a hill. Just having that extra bit of energy to keep going is crazy. It's a lot of things that go into it.
Yeah, and the fact that it's still relatively new, like this has happened so quickly. So you're learning GNCC, you're learning 3-hour races, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into this position where your team is counting on you to keep this, long win streak alive. I'm sure that had to have created, when Caleb Russell decides I'm not going to race this series anymore, that had to put more pressure on you. It would be almost obvious, right?
Yeah, for sure. I forgot even about that. Like when I raced XC2, my first year battle with Josh, it was similar to this year where Josh had won a lot. He was going out there to defend his title, and we went back and forth, 1 and 2 basically every race that year. So I dealt with a lot of these same things, but it was at a much smaller scale, just where Caleb was still out XC1 and he was running away with wins and winning the championship. So it definitely overshadowed what we were doing. So it definitely made less pressure. Whereas this year, yeah, with Caleb retiring and, them KTM being just super proactive about, winning races and striving to be the best and wanting to be at the top, it put a lot of pressure on me, and I put a lot on myself as well. But yeah, just from them, it was a lot. That's what was the most tough part. Like my rookie season, XC1 last year, I missed the first half with injury, and then I came back and Caleb had a good sizable lead in the championship. So everyone was happy. And if I was on the podium, they were pumped, whether I got third, second, first, they were pumped and happy. And I had no pressure. So it was almost easy. When you have no pressure, you go out there, you got nothing to lose. You just are able to ride better. And this year was different, all that pressure and stress that'll make you tired anyways, like just mentally coming to some races and I'd just be tired and be sitting on the line. And I don't know, it's sad to say, it's like I didn't want to be there, but which is crazy because, the racing, that's the fun part. That's what we live for. But yeah, I just had to deal with that and figure out how to get around that. And yeah, just to manage that all year. That's what was tough. Stu had a deficit in the beginning, so we had no pressure. It was almost, if he's thinking he's out of it, he can just go out and click off these wins, no problem, where I had to manage it and deal with all that. So to come through that and come out on top, it feels good. I had a tough season, had a lot of battles, but I was able to pull it off, which is cool.
Oh, man. So all the knowledge that you've gained, I would imagine, okay, everybody says it's harder to defend a title than to win it, but you have to have packed so much knowledge and experience this year.
Yeah, for sure. I always do. And I'm always striving like for progression, not honestly to be the best. I just want to constantly progress with my racecraft and ability. And I think that's what's propelled me to the top so fast. And obviously I've had like a lot of good people around me, being on KTM, it's an awesome team and they have so much support out there and they'll do everything to help you out, even if you're not contracted to things or if things weren't brought up in the beginning of the year, like if you need something, they'll make it happen, which is cool. And just a lot of wisdom from, my trainer, Charlie and Caleb, like they're always just, helping me out and giving me little pointers here and there. And with racecraft, with just riding technique and how to manage the races, that's been huge, especially late in the season this year.
Yeah, Caleb used to call it like this blackout mode. I think Thad Duvall would say the same thing. Like the last hour, maybe the last lap specifically, it's just like you're going into this area of digging deep. I don't know if that's just them or is that everybody? Is that you too? Does it take that sometimes?
Yeah, I hear them talk about that, and
yeah.
I don't know if that's something that I can do or it's just something that doesn't work for me,
Yeah.
Like a few of those races this year where I got passed in the last lap, like I was so tired and it's a weird feeling, like almost like your eyes are closing or like you're just getting so tired that you can't look far enough ahead. So you're like looking at your front fender. And there were so many times where I was like running off the track, and I feel like that's what they would call blackout mode, but it was almost like it wasn't because I was physically tired. It's because I was just mentally gassed. And For me, honestly, it's a struggle just like keeping enough energy in my system, like calories wise. 3 hours is a long time on the bike, and
Yeah.
I burn so many calories out there that's almost a thing that would affect me too. I was just like bonking, and yeah, it's weird. So that blackout mode thing, I don't know. I feel like I always push through and I give everything I have, but to get to that point and be able to do it, I don't know if that works for me. I'm not one to ride over my head and just like be sending it,
And then not even remembering.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
it is weird. Like everything happens so fast. Like there are things that happen during the race where I'm like, oh, I'll be talking about it with the guys afterwards. I'm like, yeah, I don't really remember that. Or I'm like, yeah, I saw, like, they're like, oh, you see my pit board and me pointing the line. I'm like, well, I saw a guy in an orange shirt, but that's about it. Like, I think you just get so focused and locked in. Like, I don't know, you don't process everything, or if you do, like your brain just eliminates the things that don't matter as much and just focusing on the track.
And that's why I'm asking about this stuff, because like it's the unique thing compared to motocross and supercross, or even probably road racing or whatever. You cannot replicate your racing. I know everybody says like practicing supercross and racing is different, but you can't even do 3 hours, on a Tuesday like this. So I always try to point out how gnarly you guys are, where you're almost experimenting on the fly in the race, because you can't do a 3-hour GNCC on Tuesday to train. It doesn't work.
No, I mean, you could, but there's no way you'd have as high of intensity. And, like most people, they don't have a 13-mile track to go practice on.
Right,
I got like a 4.5 minute loop. I don't want to do 3 hours on that.
Yeah.
I'd beat my head off a tree. But
right.
No, yeah. And plus, like, it just takes your body so long to recover that it just wouldn't be efficient to do that.
Yeah. So you're learning about yourself, your brain, and your body in the races.
Yeah, for sure. Plus the terrain's constantly changing, like every lap, and you got lappers, and just, there's just so much that goes on. It's wild.
Do you know the actual calorie burn, like in an average? I don't know how secret this stuff is, but like, what are we talking about here?
I mean, I don't know how accurate the stuff is, but like it could be 4,000 to 5,000 during the race.
Yeah.
Plus, like, whatever, another 2,000 to 2,500 just throughout the day. So like end of the day, it could be 7,000 to 8,000, and I don't know. That's impossible to get that many calories in.
Yeah. Well, I know some people who would like to try.
Yeah, fun but then, man, then you'll be thrown up on the line. You got a full stomach. That just makes you tired. It's wild. It's like there's no perfect way to go about it, and everyone's different. That's why, like, people asking questions, it's like I can give you what's worked for me and what hasn't in the past, but like I'm still experimenting. Like the drink mix I use and stuff, like I switched halfway through this year just because what I was using, like I just got sick of it, just sick of the taste, or like you get used to it. So you just need a change to freshen it up.
Wow. Okay, so let's
down there.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's go into this Ironman situation. First of all, obviously there was this penalty thing after the next to last round, and Stu went out of his way to say, like, dude, don't get mad at Ben Kelley. He didn't do anything wrong. Were you actually getting heat from people, even though you really were just winning the race, you weren't involved, but were you getting heat?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like it was weird. I finished the race. I had no idea. I just finished and did the podium, all that, and then like one of the team guys are like asked me like just like, hey, you know what's going on, or like, were you taking any like lines and stuff? I'm like, no, I made sure to just like this exact thing happened to me last year at this race. So yeah, I made sure to stay on the track, or what I thought was the track, and just did everything I could to try to not make a stupid little mistake where this could affect the outcome, because I mean, there's just so much on the line. And so I just went out there and did what I could, and won that race. That's what I had to do. And afterwards, hanging out, just like getting changed and stuff. And then they're like, oh, we think there are some penalties coming and whatnot. And they're just like, just stay out of it. Just go home, do your thing, get ready for the enduro. So that's what I did. And, it was a whole week. I'm sure all these teams were fighting it because there's so much on the line. And I'm sure they were protesting, trying to not get the penalty to happen. So I'm assuming that's why it took so long. And Saturday before the race in the enduro, like it comes out and social media blows up. Of course, everyone's posting it. like just to get the info out there, but they're stirring the pot. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah.
know
Oh
how it
yeah.
is. They're trying to get all the publicity they can, and it is what it is. It's not like it's secret knowledge. And yeah, everyone was just instantly hyping up Stu, supporting him, and just bashing me, and as if like I trapped him, as if I was the one that set up the line and then had my team manager and people pointing in the line, which didn't happen. I honestly don't know exactly what happened because I've just stayed out of it. Like,
Yeah.
it's not worth my time arguing with these people that don't even care about the facts. I think they just want to argue for the sake of it, but whatever. It definitely affected me at the Enduro. Like, I got fourth. It was what it was, but like, I just had a lot on my mind and I just wanted to get through that race. And yeah, luckily it settled down some, and, Stu owned up to it a little, and it is what it is. Like, I know how he was quiet for so long, but I would have been the same way. I would have just been mad at myself and like, man, felt like I let myself down a little. And it's hard, I'm sure he got a lot of hate and a lot of just negative comments coming to him as well. So it is what it is. I guess it comes with the territory. Even if you do everything right, like, they always want someone else to win or the underdog or whatever it is. So yeah, it was wild just to have all these people just bashing me and the team when it wasn't even the case. Like, but that just is what it is, comes with territory, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Just another thing coming at you, again, you weren't even expecting to be in the position of making a living racing and then a factory rider. Then you've got to win the title for KTM. And then now you're getting heat from fans, which I'm sure you probably haven't dealt with that much. Then
No,
the
that's
rain.
the first time for me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And let's be honest, in off-road, you could probably go 5 years before anything like that happens. You just had the wrong thing there at probably the worst week ever that you'd want to deal with something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, Stu's personality is pretty, I don't even know how to describe it, but
Yeah.
His fans are all the same. He's got a lot of them, and
Oh yeah,
polarizing, I guess, and they're not afraid to speak their mind. So
yeah,
they're hard fans to not have on your side, I would say.
We interrupt this podcast with Ben Kelley to remind you of our sponsors, Yoshimura. Go to yoshimura-rd.com. Don't forget, Yoshimura, those exhaust systems have been dialed in at the highest level with factory racing, such as with Honda, both the 450s and the 250s. The Lawrence brothers, Ken Roczen, Chase Sexton, their bikes look good. Their bikes work in a wide variety of RPM ranges because Ken Roczen barely revs his machine. That's just anecdotal evidence, but I'm sure the Yoshimura exhaust system works awesome there. Go to yoshimura-rd.com and get an exhaust like Roczen or Sexton or Hunter or Jet Lawrence. Or now, Chance Hymas, who will be carrying the mantle for the Honda 250 program once the Lawrence brothers eventually move up. I'm not breaking any news here. I'm just saying eventually they'll be on 450s, right? I don't know when. Also, On-X Maps. It's a great time for On-X Maps, originally developed for hunting, painstakingly accurate GPS, 500,000 miles of trails mapped out for you, for riding, for mountain biking, whatever you want to do. Go to On-X Off-Road in the App Store and On-X Maps. And of course, it's all brought to you by RacerX. This is what we do. We put out a magazine 12 times a year. You already know that. You might say, yeah, but I love magazines. They look cool sitting on my coffee table. But I don't even have a coffee table anymore. I don't really find myself having time to sit down and read a magazine. Duh, we know. We now put every piece of the magazine on the RacerXOnline.com website, which you can easily read on your phone or your tablet or anything else. But you have to be a subscriber to access the magazine content. It is exclusive to subscribers only. It is only $30 a year. $30 a year. So if you total that out monthly, that's less than most subscriptions that you have monthly. And not only that, but if you order right now, we'll give you a $25 Rocky Mountain ATVMC gift card, which means it's basically free. Give us $30, we'll give you a gift card for $25, and we'll send you a calendar in the mail, and we'll give you digital access for a friend as well. So a nice holiday gift that won't get caught in the ports off of Los Angeles. Go to racerxonline.com/weege. racerxonline.com/weege. That's WEEGE. Subscribe so I can get credit because I don't want people to use the pulp link because I'm better than that guy. Back to Ben Kelley. Okay, so then you go to Ironman and then you get this unbelievable rain. Did you guys know all weekend? Like everybody on Thursday, Friday's talking about it. So did you pretty much know you were in for an unbelievable mud race with the points still being pretty close?
I didn't think it would be that crazy.
Okay.
People were there beforehand and riding, and the dirt was like perfect. And then on Saturday, when I was looking at the track, like it was shaping up to be so good. There was even dust in spots. It was drying up. So I'm like, all right, it could take some rain. But man, we knew the rain was coming going to sleep Saturday night, and it was supposed to start halfway through the night. And I woke up and it still hadn't rained. So I'm like, all right, maybe it's pushing off. Maybe it's pushing off. Second I get to the track at 9, it starts pouring and just did not let up. So it was a weird morning, just hanging out. I didn't even go look at the track and stuff. I just hung out of the rain and chilled out. And while the morning races went on, and yeah, just sitting there, it's pouring rain. And I'm just, I don't know, it was just not letting up. And then, Caleb did the morning race and he comes back covered in mud and was just talking to us, telling us everything that happened and how destroyed the track can have this thing. So, yeah, wow. Just, I'm sitting there, I'm like, are we even going to have this race? Like, for one, if they can't just cancel it, like they have to postpone it. We cannot end the year like this. And yeah, that would have just kind of sucked to drag it on. And, Ironman's got so many people there and everyone's there all weekend and all this hype and everything. Like, I just wanted it to end and I wanted to just finish this year strong. And, we did that, but it's a shame that it had to end with a mutter. I guess it's fitting with how crazy this year has been, but
Yeah.
I wanted it to just be a battle. Like, I wanted Stu and I to duke it out and like one of us to win the race, but it didn't end that way. So I guess still interesting and crazy, but in a totally different aspect.
But it had to be running through your mind and the team and everything. It's like, okay, third or better wins the title, but oh no, now it's like 50-50 if your bike's going to make it for any rider. And then it turns out that Stu's didn't. But at the time, you had to be thinking like, what if he finishes 5th and I just don't finish? That had to be running through your mind.
Oh, for sure. And it was, so it was an 8-point lead I had. So I had to get, if he won, I had to get second, which is still hard to do. There's so many guys out there, and in these conditions, it's anything can happen. I mean, I just tried to with a mud race, in my mind, it's, you can't have expectations. It's like, just go out there and have fun. And that's the only way you'll enjoy it and honestly do good. So that's what I did. And, we go through like the first few corners and I didn't have the best start, but Stu was like right in front of me and we turned into the woods and he like cuts across the track, across the lines and splashes into this water hole and just stops. And I like had to do a double take as I went by. Like, damn, that was Stu. And then whatever, I just keep going and I'm dicing my way through the pack and just racing. It's crazy. Everyone's all over the place and splashing and just roosting each other. And I just kind of did my thing and was trying not to be crazy, but I didn't want to get passed by all these guys. I wasn't trying to get roosted. And so I was just working my way through the pack, trying to be safe and stay out of the water. But the track changed so much. None of us had any idea where we were going. I feel like it was just, trying to follow the arrows and all the reroutes they made and going through these water holes. You have no idea how deep they are, or you would think it was just a water hole, but there would be ruts all under it. So it was just crazy. And I made it all the way half a mile from the finish. I was right behind Thad, who was in second at the time. And Josh Strang was a bit ahead of us. Like, at this point, I couldn't see him anymore, but knew he wasn't far ahead. And so basically majority of the lap, I was following Thad, doing what he was doing. He'd make it through and I would just follow his same line. And I was just going, and it wasn't even a water hole where I was riding. I was just coming down a small hill and the bike shut off and that was it. Wouldn't fire again. And I'm like, damn.
Oh boy.
This is it. This sucks.
Yeah. It had to be like a little bit of panic because at this point, you don't know. Stu could be 1 minute behind you. He could go blowing by at any minute, right?
Yeah. Especially like where he broke down was right at the start. So there are so many people there, like spectators and people that can help him out. So I just assume like, he's going to get the bike going for sure. And especially with the Yamahas, like the way the air filter is way up high, I figured that would be a good bike for these conditions.
Yep.
Anything can happen. And so my bike just flamed out and I'm trying to start it. It won't start, trying to start it. And and my friend and teammate Josh was behind me at the time and he like stops next to me and sees me and like just trying to start my bike. And he went through something similar to this at an enduro not long ago. He fell in a river and drowned his bike out, and he was able to get it going after being like submerged in the water. So he's like yelling at me, like, take your airbox cover off, take your air filter right out. So we did that, trying to get it started, and still was nothing. Like my airbox had water and mud all in it. And so I'm like, but almost I'm in shock, to be honest. Like my brain's not thinking, like I'm not processing anything. All I'm doing is trying to get my bike going. And, you know, it was kind of down in a little valley, and there was a puddle. So I was like kind of in a puddle. I pushed my way out of that, and people are going around us, you know, like XC2 guys. Gets to the point where like Johnny comes up. He honestly was not even far behind us, 30 seconds maybe. So like the dude was probably leading the overall, and he just sees that I'm there working on my bike and Josh is helping, and he just like throws his bike to the ground and basically just there to offer support and be like, you know, give ideas and help out. So he jumped in, and it was the three of us just working on the bike, headed upside down, draining water out of the exhaust, out of the airbox, and just trying to do everything we could to get the bike started, rolling the rear wheel to just get the motor pumping and get water out of there so it won't hydrolock. And, you know, worked on that for so long. And at the same time, like I said, people are blasting by us, and we're trying to block the airbox so water doesn't get splashed in. It's so slippery, like we can barely even stand like where we're at. And yeah, we do all that, still can't get it started. It goes to the point where my battery dies, but luckily we have two. So I'm using the extra battery, and we push it up a hill, try to pop start it. That didn't work. Pushed up a hill again, and finally, you know, with all of us, we're able to get it started. And it was started, but I didn't have an air filter in or airbox, and we come ripping back to the trail, and there's another A rider there who must have saw Josh's bike and Johnny's, and stopped and saw us right there. And we go to put my air filter back in, but it's just covered in water and mud. And this kid just sacrifices his and gives it to me. And it was cool. Like all this stuff, like I didn't even have to ask these dudes. They just are just good people. And I don't know, just wanted to see us do win and see us do good, and didn't want to see a championship end because of a bike failure. So it's just wild, just all them supporting.
Wait, this dude in the A class, did you even know the guy?
Yeah, I knew the guy. I met him this year. So like I haven't known him for long, but yeah, it was cool. You know, he's the real MVP. I owe it to these guys for helping me out. And, you know, like Johnny's like, man, you were giving up. And we just got to the point where I was like, I felt bad for them giving up their race. So I was like, man, you guys better just go. You better just go. I'll keep working on it, but you guys just have at it. And, but at this point, you know, they lost over 10 minutes already. So they just stuck at it with me, and we were able to get it going and keep on at the race. And yeah, it was the funniest part was we go another eighth of a mile, and there's my mechanic and a whole bunch of other mechanics yelling and screaming. I don't think they'd be able to help anyways. I honestly don't know the rules, but yeah, it was just wild, like all that to happen and finally get going and come through the finish. And I pull over to change my air filter again right away. And yeah, the team manager, Auntie's like, Stu's 30 seconds behind you. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't even know if my bike's gonna finish. And even then I'm like, all right, now we're gonna have to battle, me and Stu, through the pack. And I don't know, it was just wild.
Oh yeah, because I think they had you guys in 92nd and 95th overall as you came through. So at that point, and the race has been shortened from 3 hours to 2. So everyone's thinking it almost doesn't matter because they're not going to get far enough. They probably won't even get in the top 20. They're not going to score any points. Ben Kelley's going to win by default. But in the end, you ended up finishing 7th. So if Stu had...
I think it was 9th.
Yes.
9th overall.
You had 9th overall. Sorry, 7th in the class, 9th overall, whatever it is. Bottom line is, if Stu's bike had kept running like yours did, you guys would have gotten into the points, and you really would have had to battle for position. It got to that point.
Yeah, it was, you know, we got going, and so Johnny and Josh went at the same time. So then the next like few laps, it was Josh and I just battling, you know. I kept hearing a bike behind me and looking back, and it was Josh, and I'm just going, and he was kind of in those conditions. You kind of follow the guy in front of you, because if they make it through a water hole, you're just going to do the same thing. You don't want to take a chance. And Yeah, so we battled for a few laps, and then I caught up to Johnny, and then him and I battled for another few laps. And it's weird. I was riding fast, but I was trying to preserve my bike because I had no idea if it was going to last. And it's crazy. Like the thing was strong all race. And yeah, I was just taking my time, not getting stuck, never crashed, never stalled, which is pretty wild in those conditions to not happen. And yeah, just all that. And every lap I was stopping at the pit for air filters. So like it was maybe the second or third lap I stopped, and they're like, all right, I think it was the third lap. After the third lap, they're like, okay, you have 8 minutes on Stu. Just finish. But in a race like that, 8 minutes is nothing. So I'm just not even thinking about it, still just going. And it's honestly good the conditions were so bad because you had to just focus so much on the track that you couldn't think about anything else. So it was cool, just kept at it. And, they kept giving me updates. It was hard to see pit boards and stuff, but I think it was coming into my last lap. I got a pit board just saying, that Stu was having bike problems, and they just basically just kept telling me, just finish. And yeah, I did, came through the finish, and it was a weird feeling. It's, wanted to be a big celebration and stuff, but I didn't even win the race and had no idea what place I got. So it was kind of weird. Just kind of cruised through, and everyone was happy, obviously, knew I won the championship, but yeah, I'm like, what place did I get? And they're like, I don't know, probably like 40th or something. So I had
you had no clue.
No, like, people are scattered all over the place, and yeah, it was just wild to look back afterwards and see that I got back into the top 10. And I mean, obviously, a lot of guys broke down, but like I said, I had no clue. But at the same time, I found myself like battling with like top A riders as I was coming through the pack. I could recognize those guys, and they're guys that are always in the top 20. So I'm like, all right, got to be doing pretty well. And, but didn't really think about it. Just kept at it, kept going forward and making passes. And yeah, to look back and see that I was running really good lap times and all that kind of makes it a bummer. I really wanted to end the year with another win and cap it off strong, but made it through that pressure cooker situation.
Yeah, I know. It'd be awesome to have a result there at the end. But first of all, 92nd to 9th is pretty good. And also, you're probably the only guy that's ever won this title with the bike flipped upside down, spinning the rear wheel to pump the water out. I don't know if anyone's ever been through that. So it's definitely something you can pat yourself on the back for.
Yeah, no, definitely a crazy year. Don't want to jinx myself. How can next year be even crazier? But who knows? Maybe we'll be.
What's crazy is so the bike goes 8 or 9 miles on the first lap and is 99% done. And then the rest of the race, it was fine.
That's what's the craziest part, I'm like, how does that make sense? I felt like I rode the same. Like I wasn't blasting through water holes the first lap, but there were other riders around me. So I was getting splashed, and maybe throughout the race, we splashed some of the water out, but those creek crossings got even deeper, and felt like I did the same thing. That's the whole point. It's like, how did my bike finish? But it just did. It was to be, I guess.
And how ironic. So Johnny Gerard and Josh, who I guess you knew these guys growing up, I would assume, right?
Yeah, Josh and I have known each other basically forever. He grew up 15 minutes from me, and our dads were part of the same, the Berkshire Trail Riders, it was called, the local club. And that's how they put on hair scrambles. It was local clubs from all around would put on a race, and that was what was the series. And yeah, so we just always rode together when we were younger, went to each other's birthday parties and at campouts and stuff, and just at the banquets, all the races, just that's how we knew each other. And then even Johnny, met him when I was younger too. We were still in mini like 85s, and he kind of didn't always race what we raced, so we didn't see him as much. But then kind of as he got older and started doing the J days, we were around each other more. And just growing up close to each other and having that New England pride, we just always were friends and stuff. And yeah, it's cool to just have people like that around, good
That's
people.
Just unbelievable. So yeah, you guys going to each other's birthday parties as kids. There is almost no pathway from where you guys are to becoming factory GNCC riders. Like no one has really come from that area to do that. You end up being the two factory riders on the KTM team. And then, and also along with Johnny, they're helping you in this finale, in the rain, in the mud. Like, of all people to have all ended up in the series, to have all ended up, if Johnny Girard doesn't have the title wrapped in XC2 the previous week, he can't stop and help you. Like, the way all this stuff came together is unbelievable.
Nah, that's what we were laughing about. I'm like, if he didn't have the title wrapped up, we would have just waved at him as he went by and been
For
like,
sure.
get after it.
Yeah.
But nah, it's yeah, definitely crazy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like Josh and I never thought about it, and just, but it's wild. It's almost like we all pushed each other. Like Josh and I pushed each other up, and that's how we got so much faster riding together. Even Johnny, we would ride together during the week, and we were just pushing each other, and I feel like that's how we got faster. And you know, we're all friends, but we all definitely want to beat each other. You know, it's friendly rivalry. So I think that also has something to do with it. You know, like one guy will start doing really good, and then the other two will just like work at it to beat that person. We'll finally get it done, and then they'll like find a little more in the tank, and then they'll start beating us. It's like we keep like passing each other on the ladder, and I feel like that's going to just keep going for years to come. And yeah, I think we're going to be battling for, you know, us three and for a long time.
Yeah, that's cool. So how did this Southwick race over the weekend actually go? Because you won the overall, but I see Johnny won one of the motos.
Yeah, so first moto I ended up second. It was good. I didn't have the best start. Neither did Johnny, but he made some really good passes and got out front. You know, with Robbie Marshall in the beginning, he's on a two-stroke Robbie, so he usually gets good starts and rips, especially at Southwick.
Sure.
So yeah, Johnny had a good lead on me, and I had to work my way through the pack and was battling with Josh on a 125. He was ripping the first few laps. The track was the moto track was super soft from all the rain, and it was deep ruts, and I was not riding the best in it, but figured it out as the race went on, and I got up to second. But Johnny beat me by like 25 seconds or so. I never saw him. But it's moto format. So second, the first moto is as good as the first. And I knew that. So just was focusing on the second moto, and I got a better start. I honestly locked bars with someone going down the starting line, and we were like tangled together going so fast. We couldn't get off each other. We were tangled together so long that we looked at each other. Finally got on like our foot pegs or whatever. We came apart, and I just rounded the outside and found myself in like third early on, and was ahead of Johnny. And I knew he would be, you know, the toughest guy after, you know, he's the J-Day king and just ripped at Southwick. So anywhere, honestly, but Southwick especially. And yeah, I just was charging and got into first and just kept at it. And I never saw him, so I had no idea. I just always figured he was back there and he was coming. And late in the race, I turned around and it was Robbie Marshall who was right on my wheel. You know, we were only a couple seconds apart going into the last lap, and yeah, just kept on it and was able to get the Moto 2 win. And I found out later that Johnny crashed on the second lap really hard and banged himself up. So we just decided to pull off, which is a bummer because I don't know, I just wanted to battle with him.
Yeah.
We were running similar lap times the first moto, so we knew if we got out there together, we'd be battling hard and just be able to put on a good show for the fans. That's not what keeps you going, especially at a race like that. That's what they've been so good at accomplishing, is having a cool woods track through the woods that's more of a moto feel, where you can have fans lining the track and it's just high speed and makes it entertaining.
Did you ever do the racing scene on motocross up there is insane. I always tell people when I go to Southwick every year, I'm like, this is the only area of the country where everyone still races. You still have full gates in the A class. So did you do any NESC stuff growing up, like even at Southwick?
Nah, I never grew up doing moto. I was always stuck to the woods, and yeah, I don't know, just never ventured out and do it. I would ride some moto occasionally, but very seldomly. And I think that's what held me back a little bit. Like early on as I was riding, like I was always really like a good rider and did well at the hair scrambles and stuff, but was almost more of a technical rider, like was just really smooth. And once I kind of ventured more into doing some moto and some J-Days, like it taught me to pin the bike a little bit more and gave me a little more speed. And I think that definitely helped. But no, I never did any of that. And even Southwick, like I rode there a handful of times in my life. I lived 35 minutes from there, but I could count the times I've rode there on both hands.
Wow, that's crazy. Where there's other guys that have ridden it probably literally 3,000 times in their life,
Yeah,
right?
every Wednesday night, and then doing all the local racing. So it's cool.
Now, Gerard tells me, because he's literally from Southwick, he said it's kind of getting shut down. But you guys were you part of this? You used to have trails all through town and near the track and through the woods and all that?
Yeah, it's kind of how the riding is in New England. It's all this stuff that used to be around years ago, but just the areas getting developed, houses are being built all over the place, and people aren't liking you riding through their yards anymore. So yeah, I mean, we still do it, we still get away with it, but it's not as good as it used to be. But just got to take it for what it is, and I think it'll still be around for a long time. There are enough people that ride up there, and enough people that just respect it enough to, I don't know, let it slide, I guess.
Okay. My last thing. So look, so you have 3 guys from this area that came out of J-Day, and you've gone to good levels, and you're all, I would presume, you're making money racing, winning titles. Do you think there will inspire more people, other kids in New England, where you were 12 years old, not really thinking about this? Do you think someone that's 12-year-old up there now is thinking, I want to be Ben Kelley in 10 years?
I hope so. I mean, I think it's given some hope to the area and and the younger kids. I say it all the time, like, there are so many good riders from New England. People almost don't even realize it. It's like no one even knows what New England is. Like, tell so many people I'm from Connecticut, they're like, where's that at? Or all the states are so small, but that's kind of makes it what it is. We have so many people jammed into this area that it just breeds so many riders, and because of that, it just pushes each other, and just with the terrain as well is gnarly. So if you're good in this, you get to other places that are not as technical, and it almost seems easy. So that helps. And just hopefully it inspires more people to give it a try and chase the scene. And anything's possible. That's what I'm saying. Like, I was never the best in New England either. Like, I never won any, like, the hare scramble series that I raced my whole life. I never won that championship. Like, I got second and third a handful of times, but that was it. And then I won the J-Day Off-Road Sprint Enduro series, but that was it. Just, it's almost like I had more success once I went to the national scene than just locally. So you don't have to be the best of the best. Just give it a try. You never know what'll happen.
Wow. Can you also explain the Trail Jesters team, which was kind of the bridge for a lot of you guys? What is that team all about? Because that seems to be like the seeding to the high level.
Yeah, it definitely is now. It's come a long way. So the owner of Trail Jesters, he joined the local dirt bike club that Josh and I were a part of, and he wanted to help out and support some people, and he ended up helping out Josh and his brother. And then a few years later, he started helping me out. And he was just kind of like a sponsor, wanted to help some kids out that needed it. And it's kind of evolved into what it is today, which is almost a stepping stone for the factory KTM team.
Was it a GNCC team at originally, or did it kind of move into that level?
Nah, so originally he just sponsored Josh and his brothers with bikes and helped them get sponsors, and then kind of did the same with me, just locally. And then he was really into 6 days ISDE, so he kind of brought that up for us he wanted us to try to do it. Sorry. But
all good.
Yeah, me, Josh, and my cousin John actually went to 6 days. We almost fell into that as well. We were like, all right, let's go to this qualifier and see what it's all about. And we ended up qualifying, and they're like, all right, well, I guess you got to go. So we went and did that. And,
where was this?
Argentina.
Oh, geez. So, yeah, you were not expecting any of this.
No. So, that was totally out of the box for us, but we made it happen and got through it and did surprisingly well. And so that almost kind of sparked the interest where we're like, oh, I guess we're pretty good at this. And then a year later, he's like, hey, you should try to go to some of the GNCC, see what you can do. I actually did Unadilla twice. That's another thing, New Englanders would always go to Unadilla and do the GNCC. And especially Johnny, it was, forget what year, but he was super young, maybe 2013 or 12. But he raced XC1 on a KTM 300 two-stroke and battled with Caleb and Charlie for the first half of the race. It's like, how was that possible? He had to be like 16 or younger. And
Yeah.
Still ended up like 6 overall or something, but it wasn't because of speed. He just got tired at the end. But
Yeah.
so that was crazy. And yeah, at the time I was racing A250, I think, and I don't even know what place I got. I probably got like 5th or something in class.
Wow.
And then even I went back the next year and I think I got 3rd in A250. But it was like a crazy mutter, so that helped. And then I didn't race GNCC again until 2015. I went to Unadilla again and got like 8th in XC2. And then the next race was in Pennsylvania in Somerset.
Yeah.
And it was muddy and gnarly. And I ended up getting 3rd in XC2. So it was wild.
Yeah. But no way in that 2013 when you got like 8th or whatever you got in 250A, anyone was saying like, there's your future GNCC champ right there.
No way.
No.
So yeah, it was just wild, just totally different racing, and just took us a while to adapt to it, but we figured it out.
That makes the story so cool looking back on it. You guys just went for it. Like that's what I was getting at. You're probably inspiring some other people now. It might be easier for them because you guys had no pathway. You just kind of like fell into all of it and just, oh, I'll try it. Now there's probably a more logical way people can see what you did and go that direction. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, for sure. But GNCC is so crazy. You just have to do it. And it honestly takes a year to get used to it. You got to just do all the races and everything's so different. You just got to get after it.
Hey, I mean, you're probably going to be better next year and 2 years from now than you are now. You're probably still learning too.
Hope so. That's the plan.
Yes. Yeah. You would like to be a little less tired maybe at the end as you figure all these little tricks out, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's the case. You never get less tired. You'll just end up going faster for longer.
I see. Yeah.
It's like with anything. You just never gets easier.
No. All right. But you got to have one heck of a sense of accomplishment. You'll probably never have pressure like you did this year doing it for the first time. So that part's probably going to get better.
Yeah, I hope so. And just figured out how to take it and get past it. So should be good from here on out, I hope.
There you go. All right. Well, that's a heck of a story, man. I think it's just inspiring because so much becomes so cookie cutter. I mean, GNCC has this fantastic youth program, and that's where Caleb came from, and that's where Thad came from. And for a while, it looked like it's just this is the way it has to be done. I think it's cool to just say, yeah, you just never know. You never know who's going to come from where. Because for a while, it's kind of like on the motocross side where it's like, oh, you just have to go to this training facility. You have to do it this way. And then like Justin Cooper and Jet Lawrence come along and it's like, nope, totally different. I think it's just cool that there's different ways still to make it. So congrats to you on kind of showing people how it can be done.
Thank you.
Cool.
And honestly, it's almost like we didn't think about it for so long and just did it for fun that it was still refreshing, you know. People get burnt out, and then for us, it's like we just came into it, and then once we started putting the programs together, it worked out and it was still fresh, and yeah, just crazy.
Dude, I would have put money on you bringing that point up for sure. The burnout thing, right? Because you weren't, I have to train harder at age 13. It's probably a lot easier at your age now. That helps.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't start training hard till I was, I don't know, 20. So
yeah, it's fresh.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Awesome story. Congrats on the title, but also the way you won it. That's just unbelievable. So I know you would like to have won that race, but I'm sure you're never going to forget the way that Ironman went.
No, definitely not.
Cool. All right. Thanks for the time. This is phenomenal. And I don't know, maybe I'll see you. I don't live too far from Caleb's house. I need to go up there and hang with you guys sometimes in the North Carolina days. So maybe I'll see you there. Cool.
Sounds good.